Season 1983-84, Cannon Division 4, 21st sought re-election, Milk Cup first round, FA Cup first round. Mickey Bullock's expectations for an improved season might have been enhanced had he been able to strengthen his squad with the players he wanted. Having released Malcolm Goodman and Jimmy Halliburton, Bullock acquired forwards Jeff Cook from Plymouth, a target for George Kirby 4 years earlier, Stuart Mell from Doncaster and midfielder Neil Hansen from Preston. Though Vernon Allott moved to Rochdale for £2,000, the town boss struggled in vain to keep want-away Steve Spooner at the Shea. Spooner eventually moved to Chesterfield in exchange for £11,500, and further headaches lay in store for Bullock. Older striker Mark Sanford signed for the club before breaking down in training with a reoccurrence of a knee injury. His contract had to be cancelled in September. Sheffield Wednesday's Gordon Owen, having had a pair of boots bought for him, turned his back on Halifax and signed for Cardiff instead. Despite a morale-boosting 2-0 win over Leeds United in the West Riding Senior Cup, Illingworth teenager Mark Greenway kept former England winger Peter Barnes under wraps. The Shaymen made a disappointing start to the season. 2 victories in the first 9 games left them languishing in 19th place, and they fell yet again at the first hurdle in the Milk Cup, this time to Darlington. Town lost the first leg 1-0 at the Shea, but looked to have turned things around at Feethams, taking a 2-goal lead, before Darlington hit back with 3 goals in 20 minutes to take the tie 4-2 on aggregate. On the 31st of August, Halifax Town had announced a record profits of £40,000 and 8, as opposed to a record loss of £97,627 the previous season, though profits had included the money from the sale of Bobby Davison. Town was still £177,882 in the red and deep in trouble. With his side struggling, Bullock's £12,000 bid for Alan Little was accepted by Torquay, only for Town to pull out when a long-standing debt meant they could no longer afford him. Luckily for Bullock, he would be able to acquire the midfield general in November on a free transfer. October wins over Peterborough and Crewe lifted the Shaymen up to 8th, but this was as good as it got. Despite taking Burnley's former England B international, Joe Gallagher, on loan, Town went into freefall. Alan Little actually arrived in the middle of a run of 6 consecutive defeats, as Town dropped into the re-election zone for the first time. But that was not all. As North Shields had done 12 months earlier, Northern League Whitby Town came to the Shea and knocked Halifax Town out of the FA Cup. This had looked unlikely when Dave Evans had given Town a 2-0 lead in the 58th minute, but there was no excuses for the way the Shaymen caved in and handed the non-leaguers victory. With confidence obviously low, the side ended their poor run with a draw at fellow strugglers Rochdale, and followed that up with defeating promotion hopefuls Blackpool at the Shea. With striker Steve Cooper arriving on loan from Birmingham City, Town extended their unbeaten run to 7 games in the new year, though it took a last-gasp goal from Tony Smith to earn them a home point against Wrexham in a wretched display. It was teenager Steve Formber, with his first touch in league football, who saved the day when he scored Town's second equaliser in the next match at the Shea, against Chester, but this was only the prelude to the worst spell of the season. February and March brought 4 consecutive league defeats, among them hammerings of 2-5 at Aldershot and 1-6 at Crewe, and there was also a 2-0 defeat at Tranmere in the first round of the new Associated Members' Cup. But the worst result was still to come. With keeper Lee Smelt ruled out for injury, Manchester student Kieran Vesey was drafted in goal for only his second game at Mansfield, though he was less shell-shocked as the Stags found it all too easy and romped to a 7-1 victory. Mickey Bullock was dismayed at losing Paul Hendry and Dave Staniforth, both long-term injury casualties. The pressure increased on the manager, particularly after a 4-1 defeat at runaway league leaders York City, but 3 days later, on Easter Monday, his players responded magnificently, beating Rochdale 5-0 at the Shea, with Barry Gallagher helping himself to 4 goals, as Town moved temporarily out of the re-election zone. Further home wins over Chesterfield and, in their final game, 4-1 over Colchester, saw Halifax move out of the bottom 4 once again. But the season had yet to run its course. Wrexham, who had 3 games left, could still overhaul the Shaymen if they mustered 7 points from them. Even before the club's immediate future was decided, supporters knew they would have to do without several key players. On the 17th of May, the retained list showed 7 major omissions. Incredibly, Lee Smelt, David Evans, Tony Smith, Mick Wood, Martin Nuttall, Stuart Mell and player coach David Staniforth were all given free transfers, with John Crowther admitting that the severe financial situation had forced the club's hand. The Did You Know section for this chapter. Halifax Town's mascot is Freddie Fox, after a fox who was spotted running about at the Shay. 3 days later, Wrexham, who had started to make up the points on Town with victory over Chesterfield and a draw at Crewe, thrashed mid-table Tranmere 5-1 to leap above the Shaymen on goal difference. It meant Halifax now needed to make their fourth re-election application in the last 8 years, and although the Mayor, Councillor John Bradley, canvassed all other 91 Football League clubs asking for support, there was yet again the feeling that Halifax's time might be up. Along with their own recent poor history and all too familiar financial plight, Alliance Premier League champions Maidstone United were preparing a strong case. Should they be elected, they were pledging to make £300,000 available to launch an immediate challenge for Division 4 honours.